as expected, and as economists expected, the Fed raised rates by 50 basis points and announced policy pertaining to QT, quantitative tightening. The wording from Chairman Powell suggests that there are at least one or two more 50 basis point hikes ahead, and then a slowing down of monetary policy. The Fed has no easy choices because as rates increase, the risks to growth also increase. However, Powell made it clear again and again that his number one priority is inflation and will use all means to combat it no matter what the cost. Chairman Powell made the point that the labor market was very tight, with job openings outstripping the available supply of labor. In fact, he said that unemployment needed to go up a bit for supply imbalances to even out. But as depicted in the above chart, employment levels in the U.S. have not returned to pre-pandemic levels yet. There is plenty of labor out there, it just does not want to return to work. The Fed wants to reduce the surplus demand in the U.S. economy, and it admitted that there is no easy way to do that. As such, the Fed has decided to increase the cost of capital as a way of achieving this goal. The latest data from Freddie Mac shows that 30-year fixed mortgages in the U.S. are up to 5.27%, up from about 2.5% a year ago. And as the above chart from the U.S. Mortgage Bankers Association shows, the average monthly mortgage payment went from about $1,300 between 2019 and 2021 to a little over $1,700 today. So yes, eventually consumers and businesses will reduce their surplus demand, as the Fed says, and the Fed will get its wish. The question is, will this combat inflation? The U.S. had negative GDP growth in the first quarter. Generally speaking, as long as the U.S. consumer is doing well, the U.S. economy is generally okay. However, as the chart above shows, consumer confidence in the U.S. is falling off a cliff and is rivaling the recessions of 2008 and the 1980s. Over the past several years, U.S. consumers, for a whole host of reasons, have accumulated a lot of savings on the side. Unfortunately, today these savings are gone. Again, as the chart above shows, consumer savings are in the lows of 2013. What this basically means is that it will be very difficult for the consumer to keep the U.S. economy growing over the next several quarters. In other words, it is very likely that the U.S. will see negative GDP growth, perhaps for the next several quarters ahead. At the same time, the Fed admitted, finally, that most of the inflationary pressures have to do with supply shocks that are outside its control. Surprise, surprise. As a reminder, these supply shocks are the ongoing COVID pandemic, high energy prices, and the recent war in Ukraine. And since the Fed can't do anything about energy prices, which is the biggest component of recent inflationary pressures, it has decided to lower demand by, making everybody in the U.S. poorer. Please note that this is the opposite of what the ECB has done, saying that monetary policy should stay as is because the reasons for inflationary pressures are outside of its control. Adding everything up, in my opinion, the Fed is making a policy mistake. In fact, this will prove to be the second policy mistake Chairman Powell has made, the first being his insistence on raising rates and trying to shrink the balance sheet in 2018-2019. Insofar as markets, after the Fed announcement on Wednesday, U.S. markets rallied hard, only to give everything back and then some on Thursday and Friday. As I said in our 2022 outlook, there is nowhere to hide with Fed policy being so hawkish. Mind you that the carnage is not limited to equities but has also spread to bonds. On a positive note, a lot of hot air is coming out of the market, especially in Cathie Wood type companies, and overall equity prices here and there are once again becoming compelling investments. But finding these companies that can go against this tide requires hard work and in many cases needs nerves of steel.